Hi, everyone, and welcome to StudioJake. I, of course, am your host, Jacob Airy. Thank you for joining me today on my vidcast where I talk about all things pop culture. All right, so diving right into it. I make no secret that I'm a fan of anime and manga. I've openly challenged people on social media who cry about, some of the content of many anime and manga. Of course, there are plenty that have objectionable content. No one is disputing that. But one of the things that I find interesting is how Western localizers will translate some things. And this was a big complaint I had about Comey Can't Communicate. So, for those of you who don't know, it's sort of a teen drama, and my wife likes it a great deal. She reads both the manga and the anime and watches the anime. Well, when Netflix got the rights to it and began doing the English dub for the first season, they changed a lot of the dialogue. They started to put in Western sensibilities about gender ideology within the anime. And so we actually watched the sub version, which was more accurate to the manga. However, Netflix kind of figured this out. So when they did the sub version as well as the dubbed version, they kept those gender politics, the identity politics in the story. True fans of anime and manga don't like this. Now, sometimes I do know that we weebs tend to exaggerate a little bit because sometimes they do things like tone down foul language so they can get a different rating. Things like that don't really bother me as long as the appropriate context is there. Sometimes they take it too far. Like, for instance, a lot of times you'll see where they'll take the term slave and make it chained or unchained or whatever it is, or they'll leave out the word altogether, which I think is kind of funny because then with Aharen, Japanese title is very long and it literally translates to Aharen is undecipherable, but then they kept the original Japanese title, but then they didn't want to do it's weird. I don't know why. Well, a lot of these manga translators, particularly those weird fetishes, have messed around and they have found out. And the Japanese audience is getting tired of it too, as well as the Japanese artists and writers. They're tired of American translators putting in this woke identity politics into their stories. There is an excellent article on bleedingfool.com that really goes into depth at this about how it was worse than I thought. I thought like maybe they were doing things a little bit here, a little bit there, but it actually turns out that it was way more subversive than I thought. They were doing all kinds of ridiculous things to these stories. For example, they give this part of the article where they have a screenshot of a tweet from a media outlet called VGT47 that says hashtag Ghostwire Tokyo's authentic representation makes a mockery of Ghost of Tsushima, which is one of the most celebrated games in the world, by the way, and Sifu's cultural tourism. And then someone retweets it and says they altered the line, who knows really, to all property is theft kid and Ghostwire Tokyo in the West for inappropriate, unprofessional, out of context propaganda. I call this real cultural appropriation, not your crap. And this article is really interesting. I highly recommend it. It's called "The Tides Are Finally Turning in the Localizer Culture War." It's written by Victor James, and they give example after example after example of Western translators unapologetically, by the way, especially when they're busted, saying, oh, we don't care. Like there's one from Katrina Leonidakis where she says, one, this may surprise you, but I love this material. No, she doesn't. Two, the translation is not for you. And then she said the translation, you are not the intended audience. So in other words, they don't care. They're doing this over and over again. And it's even affected certain titles like The Ancient Magus Bride, which is a wildly popular sort of paranormal story. The anime is fantastic. The manga is really good, according to my wife. I've not read it, but my wife has read it. She loves it. However, the Japanese have had enough of it. Rightly so, I might add. They are now turning to AI so they can do their own English translation. So This is according to the article. The tide seems to be turning. Old school Japanese mangakais who created these beloved works have recently warned about political correctness in Japanese cultural works. As reported by Bounding into Comics, notable mangakai Kin Akamatsu said, "If you don't go abroad, the political correctness problem isn't a battle at all," which prompted Kobayashi to share his personal idea that I don't think a series will sell that much when it comes to selling itself as politically correct. The point is, manga was released without being conscious of political correctness cannot be read due to the political correctness problem, said Kobayashi. I think it is a mess, like a fire. Having seen the works butchered by Western activists, these mangakai are pushing back. As reported by Niche Gamer, the anime series The Ancient Mega Spry is now bypassing localizers altogether by allowing AI to translate the work. Of course, this brought out the usual vitriol on X from localizers who previously bragged about changing the content they were hired to create. So remember that Katrina person? I don't have words for how embarrassing and disappointing this is. Instead of paying a human to do a quality job, they're using AI to get a mediocre product for free. Is this how little they think of English-speaking audiences of translation? For shame. For one thing, that's incredibly racist comment. Or if I had said it about anything else, I would have been labeled racist. But she can say it. For one thing, these are Japanese works. And if the Japanese aren't happy with how it is being translated, then they should seek other remedies for that, especially with narcissistic main character syndrome translators like this. And I would say the same if it was a Mexican work, if it was insert language here, if it was from Africa, if it was from the Middle East, if it was from Israel, whatever the situation was, the original creators have a right to comment about how their works are being translated into other cultures. And this is something that I debate a lot with other people of my ilk, is when there's sort of an anti-anime sentiment that I'm dealing with. I often point out, you've got to realize this is coming at it from a different perspective. Now, me personally, I think Western culture is superior because I was born in it. However, Eastern culture has a different take on things. They have different philosophies. They have different understanding of things. They have different ways of telling their stories. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. Eastern writers think that their way of life is superior, as they should. They were born in it. They have a right to think that. And they also have a right to protect their creative property from these narcissistic identity politics pushers. And that is just a fact. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. That is an apt analogy for this. And it would be the same if Cacophony or the Seven Royals were translated into another language and they took out the themes I put in it, or put in something that was, I was philosophically or religiously against. I would protest it, and then I would probably seek my own remedy for a translation. Unfortunately, my books have not been translated into another language. I would love for that to happen one day. But in the meantime, I think that this is a good thing. And if they can't get English translators to appropriately do scripts or mangas correctly, then yeah, of course they're going to turn to AI. For one thing, it's free. And a lot of it is, not all of it, but for one thing, it is free, and I think it's good. I'm not on the anti-AI bandwagon. It's going to be a learning curve for these mangakais. And here's a simple solution. All these translators like Seven Seas, all they have to do is hire writers who aren't going to mess with the final product. That's all they have to do. And like I said, I don't have a problem if they're like, hey, listen, this is loaded with foul language, so let's tone down the foul language a little bit. Okay, fine, whatever. But when you're actually inputting your own beliefs, when you're trying to self-insert your own person into the stories that you didn't even have a hand in writing, then yeah, I don't blame them. Now, like I said, I'm not going to read the rest of the article. I want you to go to it. It's bleedingfull.com. Definitely check out their stuff. But I think in the meantime, I don't blame the manga industry for doing this. I think that they are very smart to do this, and it'll teach those identity politics SJWs that when they mess around, they're going to find out. And boo-hoo. You did a poor job. You deserve to lose your job. And that's just a fact. So I don't feel sorry for you at all. You mocked people who criticized you, and now you're getting a taste of your own medicine. Boo freaking who. And like I said, maybe this will teach some of the publishers who translate them into English. Maybe that'll teach them to hire writers who will actually translate them appropriately. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you'll give it a thumbs up, that you'll leave me a comment, tell me what you think, that you'll share it out with your friends, and of course, consider subscribing to StudioJake. I cover all kinds of nerd and pop culture topics, including film, television, anime, comic books, and so much more. I hope that you'll also head over to my main website, StudioJakeMedia.com, where I have even more news, views, and commentary. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, head over to my locals page. That's studiojakemedia.locals.com. It's the best way to support me. I'm trying to build a little community there. I have exclusive reviews and articles, so definitely head over there and check it out. And I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.